Hello everybody, it's AJ back again with the Mighty Glue Stick, and we're back into the monsters. This week I have got a player character race which I'm particularly fond of, the Aasimar, and by association the Deva. And I have once again a script that I've written which will be available in full for Patreon subscribers. You can go and check out the script for this week's video. Aasimar, ooh, I love them. So forgive me if I take my time on this player race and, as usual, delve deep into the lore, what they are, where they come from, how they fit snugly into the official setting of the world's greatest role-playing game, and perhaps give you some information you would not otherwise have known about them. So, what are they? What are they not? And how do Aasimar differ from Deva? And those of you who've never played 4th edition, what is a Deva? Those of you who don't yet own a copy of Volo's Guide to Monsters, I will also be taking a look at how the Aasimar are presented there, and as the latest incarnation of the official Celestial Half-Breed player race for 5th edition, which is very exciting. Aasimar are half-human, and while, hey, it's your game, you can have a half-dwarf or half-elf Aasimar if you want to have one in the setting. They are half-human only, officially. And there's a good reason for this, which I'll talk about in some detail later on. They are half-human, but prefer the company, typically, of half-elves and half-orcs. They do not, however, enjoy the company of tieflings, instinctually distrusting them. They just generally share a mutual dislike of each other, tend not to give each other the benefit of the doubt, are easily offended by each other, though they can consciously work on this as an inherent bigotry. It will be a struggle, one that they do not want to expend the effort on. They are descended from humans who are children to a celestial being, an angel. It is unknown precisely how angels were first created. Some claim that the gods created the angels, although if they did this, it was not an intentional act, and angels themselves are nearly as old as the first gods, having originated in the very first moments the astral sea's existence. However, whether or not the gods created the angels offered themselves as soldiers during the Dawn War. As a result, most today still serve the gods, though they not all do, and they are not, strictly speaking, obligated to, other than their culture, history, and individual core principles drive them to. The offspring of the most powerful angels, the Solars, often had brilliant, talking about the Aasimar, often have brilliant topaz eyes, or silvery or golden skin. Those who were descended from Quattle or Liliend lineage most commonly had small iridescent scales. Many Aasimar also have light covering of feathers on their shoulders where an angel's wings might sprout. Most Aasimar have pupilless, pale white, grey or golden eyes or silver hair, but those descended from Planetars could have emerald skin, while those descended from Avoral celestials might have feathers mixed in with their hair. Those descended from Gales often have pearly, opalescent eyes. Similarly, those descended from the Fae Brelani will have very pale, even light blue skin and pearly eyes. They may tend to be more fierce and competitive than those descended from the Gale. As the Brelani are Fae Lords of Autumn, they're more tempestuous. The Gales are a type of noble Eladrin I mentioned in the exploration video on the Feywild, in case you missed that. They are the embodiment of winter, and as such they are native to the Feywild, but they also live in the celestial planes, such as Avendor or Celestia, where they are the knights errants of the celestials. So Aasimar descended from them may have features similar to an elf. Otherwise, Aasimar tend not to have pointed ears. Compared to with gods and exarches, I always have trouble with that word. Angels are far more interested in the affairs of the primaterial plane and other planes, acting both openly and secretly as agents in the mortal world. And as we see in Volo's Guide, they watch over their mortal offspring and act as spiritual advisors during their ward's life, only turning away from them if an Aasimar turns away from the light and embraces darkness, but more on that in a moment. So, they look human, though generally more physically impressive, taller, and with some exotic features. These features are variable and largely up to the player as to exactly what manifest physical differences there are, but typically all Aasimar are fairer and more graceful than humans. They mature at the same rate, but tend to live longer than humans, up to at least 160 years. They have keen sight, including low light vision, similar to an elf, They can see 60 feet in darkness as though it was dim light and in shades of grey. Unlike angels, Aasimar are vulnerable to magical effects that evoke fear. They are also not as resistant to damage, but still take half damage from necrotic or radiant attacks. They move at 30 feet per round like a human, and many Aasimar, the more common protectors, can fly for a short duration once per long rest. All Aasimar can speak common and celestial. They can lay their hands on an injured being and heal their level worth of hit points once per long rest. And they instinctually know how to cast the cantrip for light using their charisma as their spellcasting ability for it. Their charisma has a bonus of +2. So that's the base Aasimar. Aasimar have celestial DNA, but the traits may not manifest in their children or even in their siblings, and they may come from a bloodline that produces Aasimar very rarely, infrequently, or most of the time. But it is not unheard of for the traits to remain dormant for long enough that a parent may be quite unprepared for their child to be born so different. And of course, being raised in a human society with obvious physical and supernatural differences often leads to exclusion, harassment, bullying, or being singled out unfairly. Even if it's favourably, it's still being different. To the inherently empathic, noble-hearted Aasimar, this can feel particularly brutal, and some are scarred by this very deeply. Now, at level 3, the distinct subtype of Aasimar is revealed. However, they don't choose what type they are at level 3. The player should already know that at first level and be role-playing appropriately. But whatever. At level 3, they will either be a protector or a scourge. There is another type, the fallen, but as either type can become a fallen, or a fallen can once more become a redeemed Aasimar and resume its original type, the fallen is more like a different state of being than a distinctive heritage. The protectors are descendants of celestials that are mostly about duty and goodness, so protectors are the most common kind of Aasimar. They gain a +1 to wisdom alongside their charisma bonus, and once per long rest at level 3 and beyond, they can emanate their inner light and glow from the eyes, as well as sprout luminous and corporeal wings, allowing them to fly at 30 feet per round, so the same speed they can walk. But that extra motion, that movement is good. Also, their attacks deal additional radiant damage equal to their current level for up to a minute. The Scourge are descendants of warrior celestials and very powerful ones, such as solars and planetars, who are more about destroying evil wherever they find it, and they manifest a destructive, holy fire that burns within them, giving them a bonus of +1 to Constitution on top of the Charisma bonus. And they can spend their action to fill a 10-foot area around them with divine fire, also shedding light out further to another 10 feet beyond that. This fire burns them and any other creature within 10 feet for half the Aasimar's level worth of damage at the end of every round they spend in it. Also, once on each of their turns, the Aasimar can inflict extra radiant damage equal to their level with any other attack or spell. So this doesn't have to be nearby them, it can also be a ranged attack. So, I don't know how popular that would be as a player character, just a side note. Having a holy fire that burns you and your allies as well as everything else. But it's got a lot of role-playing opportunities, and it's true to the Aasimar's forms. They note in Volo's guide that the Aasimar who are Scourges may often wear a mask and only unveil it when they're releasing the destructive fire, which is a cool culture aspect. Finally, the Aasimar who slide into evil, turning their back on the goodness that is their heritage, the Fallen. An Aasimar who is touched by dark powers as a youth, perhaps subjected to a full ceremony by evil cultists, or at the hands of a fiend, or simply as a result of being tormented and victimized by the humans they live amongst and inherently feel great sympathy for, to the point that, with no way to retreat any further, they instead lash out with a terrible rage born of a broken heart. In any event, the presence of their angelic guide leaves them, and they learned to channel their hatred through their divine powers, manifesting a dark transformation where their eyes turn inky black and skeletal, ghostly wings spread from their back, causing creatures within 10 feet to recoil in fear unless they make a saving throw. The save DC is 8+, proficiency score plus the charisma modifier of the Aasimar. Until the end of the Aasimar's next turn, and during this time the transformation lasts up to a minute, the Fallen can channel extra necrotic damage into an attack on one target per turn, with the damage being equal to the fallen's level, and they can make this transformation once per long rest. So that's the modern, up-to-date player character race, but in the Forgotten Realms, the official setting for the 5th edition of Dungeons & Dragons, where did the Aasimar come from, and what, for those who played 4th edition, happened to the Deva as a playable race? How do they fit into the Forgotten Realms, and how are they related to Aasimar? Are they the same thing? To answer these questions, we need to take a trip back in time to the ancient human empire of Aasimar. Grab a cup of coffee. We're going to get deeply nerdy now. The Aasimar Empire, known as the Roran Empire, was an ancient human nation that ruled the lands in the east that have since become the nations of Mulhorandi, Thay, and Unther. First founded in the year minus 8,350 Dale reckoning, this empire was centered in what is now the Roran Desert. Its borders were vast, reaching from the endless waste of the Golden Water from the Alamba Sea to the frontiers of Karatua itself. Sometime around minus 4,370 Dale reckoning, a suspicious plague decimated Aasimar cities. In answer to the labour shortage caused by the plague, 4 years later, the wizard rulers of Roran brought hundreds of thousands of people from another world to be their slaves. The prisoners in turn brought their faith and their deities, the Mulhorandi and Untheric pantheons, with them. Although they came from the same plane, the prisoners came from different regions as well as different times on that world. They soon intermingled and intermarried with each other and the surviving Aasimar citizens to form the race which is now known as the Mulan humans in Forgotten Realms. The slaves prayed hard for salvation, but the prayers went unheard since the wizards had closed all portals and created a barrier preventing divine intervention. This barrier banned the gods from that sphere and made them effectively non-existent as long as the barrier held. After some time, Ao heard the slaves' prayers and summoned the god Ptah, P-T-A-H, I think that's how you pronounce it, Ptah, an ancient deity of wild space, which is basically the astral sea, let's say, whose faith had originated in the homeworld of the Mulan. And at the request of Ao, Ptah returned to his homeworld and assembled the two relevant pantheons of that sphere. He told them what had happened to their followers and of their prayers for salvation. Ao had offered to extend their influence to the sphere of Abiatoral. The only way to gain access to the sphere of realm space was to send avatars through the wild space under the guidance of Ptah. Ptah told them that the avatars had to be as powerful as possible to be able to battle the Aasimar wizards. Creating such avatars, known as manifestations, required them to sacrifice much of their divine power. Both Ra, head of the deities of the Mulhorandi pantheon, as well as Enlil, leader of the Untheric pantheon, agreed to Ao's offer. Many, but not all of their fellow deities agreed upon this as well. Ptah led the gods as they rode in two different galleys. The followers of Ra, as Ra's manifestation was called, rode in the galley named Matet. At night it changed into a barge called Semket. The manifestation of Enlil and his children rode in the galley of the gods. On their journey through wild space, Ptah guided them with a beacon of light, a 1-foot square golden cube with silver cylinders extending from the top as well as the four corners. Each face of the cube was engraved with an ancient hieroglyphic rune of unknown origin or meaning. The manifestations landed on the highest peaks in a range of mountains on the northeastern edge of the Aasimar Empire, known today as the Taylor Shan, or God's Watch Mountains. There they split into more divine forms, such as mortal forms of avatars known as incarnations. These descended into the fertile plain below amongst the long-lost people. The most talented they made into priests, and truly faithful were transformed into divine minions, clerics. Before the Aasimar lords realized what was happening, their Mulan slaves had risen in a rebellion. Many of the incarnations and divine minions were destroyed in the battles with the Aasimar artificers, and the rebellion began to falter. Then the manifestations joined the fray, coming down from the mountains along a path that would become known as the Road of the Gods. They unleashed their divine fury upon the wizards. By minus 2488 day reckoning, the Emissary Empire was tottering, its cities engulfed in flames. So, to answer the original question, the Divas are the immortal divine spirits of the original manifestations. They have their origin in the world of the Mulan, which was basically ancient Egypt, and the original lords of the etheric people, which were ancient Sumeria. These days, or should I say after the destruction of Mulhorandi by the spell plague, the Mulhorandi pantheon has disappeared, and the etheric pantheon, I think the only remaining names from that list are Tiamat and Asuran. So we all know who Tiamat is, and Asuran has joined the Faerunian pantheons. The Divas are distinct from Aasimar in a number of significant ways. First, they do not reproduce, they reincarnate. Once a Diva is killed, another Diva will form in an area of great natural beauty, such as the sun-kissed mountain pool overlooked by a rainbow-misted waterfall in the mountains high above a lush forest. The Divas have access to the experiences of several lifetimes in their subconscious and sometimes waking mind as well. These souls are obligated to fight in the cosmic war against evil, though some stray from this path and are reincarnated in the next life as Rakshasas. This is not the origin of all Rakshasas, but just the form of a fallen Diva. And much like the mortal Aasimar, the fallen Rakshasas can be redeemed and returned to their former Diva state on their next reincarnation, although it's pretty hard for them to do that, as it's a soul corruption. Although exact appearance varies widely, all Divas are marked by patterns of light and dark on their skin. These patterns may vary from mundane hues like chalk white or black to otherworldly shades like grey, blue, purple, teal. Either the light or the dark colour may be dominant, meaning that a Diva might appear as a white or blue or white, neither being particularly common. Whatever the case, the dominant colour makes up the regular colour of their skin, while the lesser shade appears as patterns across the face, chest and shoulders. The hair of a Diva is often the same colour as either of the two. Divas, like godly avatars, cannot be permanently killed. Just as an avatar will return to the home plane of the god, it is a manifestation of a divine power to be reabsorbed and then perhaps sent to the prime again. So the Diva's souls inevitably return to their mortal world in new bodies as reincarnations of their old selves. However, Divas do not typically remember their past lives exactly and are born as new individuals and therefore subject to the same dangers of mortality as other races, while being prevented from passing on to the afterlife permanently. So they never pass on. Their soul can't be bargained, it can't be bought, it can't be captured. It's bound to the mortal plane. It's part of what Ao did originally with the original pantheon. Some Divas are born as infants, while others are born into fully formed adult bodies. Each Diva has, in fact, been reincarnated countless times over the period of 4 millennia in which Divas have been known to exist on Faerun. So, Aasimar, on meeting a Diva, will recognise what a Diva is, and a Diva will know of the bloodline of an Aasimar family and sense the manifestation of Aasimar heritage in an individual. They will basically get a divine Wi-Fi signal from each other. They'll ping. Without the original pantheons to direct them now, the Divas in Aasimar are scattered widely and there's no central organising body. They don't have a nation or a culture of their own. They are individuals who seek out meaning from life and pursue their natural and supernatural inclinations as their backgrounds and personalities lead them. So they're perfect role-playing characters, really. How to handle these complex and charismatic individuals in your game is up to you, but they do have a rich, detailed history behind them that will likely not... I don't think most people will know it. I think it's a lot of fun playing a character like this where you get to learn about them and at the same time the character is developing. And they're discovering their family history and the legends behind their supernatural powers. So certainly as a DM, it is huge fun to impart the information in a storied personal quest for that player during the course of a long campaign, where you can print out fragments of Aasimar history, myth and legend as the party delves into ancient ruins or speaks with ancient beings or spirits who have knowledge of thousands of years ago. And the Forgotten Realms has an incredibly deep, rich vein of lore that, when used in a campaign, really makes the exploration and discovery of the discovery aspect of the game come to life. And Aasimar and Divas are a great way of exploring the history of the Untheric people, the Mulan, to delving into Thay, which is the people of Thay are descended from those people. So they have a rich history as well, and how their empire has fallen into evil and decay and back to their sorcerous ways of the people who were once their oppressors. They've been bred into them, and really the Imaskari people got a lot of drive and ambition from the interbreeding with that slave folk that came from originally Earth. So that's the Aasimar for you. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you liked it, give me a thumbs up. I'm always open to suggestions for new monsters that you want to discover. I have a long list of videos yet to make. And also catch my mid-weekly videos on exploring the locations and the planes of existence and things of Dungeons & Dragons. Also, I have a Patreon page. I'll put a link to that in the description down below. And also some links to further reading on this information on the Aasimar and some of their history, and a very good wiki page about resources that you can read up on, and the source books that they appear in, many of which I have referenced for this video. Thanks very much for listening, everybody. I'll catch you again soon.